I'd actually known William was going to be a boy because the scan had shown it, so it was no surprise. Had you?
Heavy smoke curled from the stainless steel incinerator in the basement of Clarence House as a leather-bound journal bearing Princess Diana's personal handwriting was tossed onto the red-hot coils. Before the pages could turn to ash, Prince William and Catherine kicked open the security door, seizing the charred diary from the flames. That hidden manuscript contained explosive accounts of decades-old conspiracies and hidden financial trails that Camilla had fought desperately to erase, setting the stage for an explosive public reckoning that would tear the royal inner circle apart. The midnight raid on Clarence House basements. Prince William stepped through the open security door into the subterranean basement of Clarence House. He held a high-powered tactical flashlight in his right hand. The beam cut through the thick dust hanging in the cool cellar air. Catherine walked closely behind him, her boots clicking softly against the concrete floor. Two armed protection officers flanked the doorway behind them. In the far corner of the chamber, an industrial stainless steel incinerator glowed with a dull, fierce red heat. A metal chute stood open at eye level, venting sulfur and scorched smoke into the room. Basement archival complexes beneath royal residences are classified under strict heritage management codes. When emergency estate enforcement protocols are triggered by the sovereign, designated security details possess full legal authority to enter and secure any sub-level utility space. This immediate physical intervention prevents the permanent destruction of historical records during sudden administrative turnovers. William strode across the concrete floor and reached the incinerator before the metal loading tray could slide shut. He thrust his gloved hand into the upper lip of the chute and hauled out a thick leather-bound volume. The cover was charred and blackened along the bottom edge, smelling sharply of burnt paper and leather. He blew a cloud of gray ash off the front cover. The faint gold-embossed initials stamped into the leather revealed the personal journal of Princess Diana. Emergency document rescue operations require precise handling to preserve fragile organic materials from chemical degradation. Forensic conservators utilize specialized temperature-controlled cases to stabilize charred paper artifacts immediately after extraction from high-heat environments. An unanswered question hung in the smoky air regarding how William had managed to pinpoint the exact basement incinerator room out of dozens of secure utility chambers beneath the estate. That puzzle found its resolution when William pulled a folded architectural floor plan from his jacket pocket. The blueprint had been printed in 1998 and featured hand-drawn annotations made by his mother's former private secretary. The notes explicitly marked the old secondary incinerator shaft as the primary disposal site for confidential personal correspondence. Utilizing historical architectural blueprints allows security teams to bypass modern electronic security bypasses and locate hidden subterranean spaces during estate takeovers. These vintage floor plans often reveal undocumented structural alterations made decades prior. A fresh puzzle emerged when William examined the flyleaf of the partially burned journal and noticed a strange alphanumeric code written in blue ink across the bottom corner. Catherine leaned in closer to inspect the handwritten marking under the bright beam of the tactical flashlight. She recognized the exact sequence of numbers and letters immediately. It was the same cataloging code that had appeared on a set of locked exhibition ledgers kept inside Kensington Palace since 1997. She told William that the journal had definitely been cataloged in Diana's private apartment before her passing. Cataloging personal diaries into royal archive collections follows rigid curatorial standards established by the Lord Chamberlain's office. Every item belonging to a deceased princess must be officially registered and stored in climate-controlled vaults to prevent unauthorized private possession. Another puzzle surfaced regarding how the catalog journal had been removed from the official Kensington vaults and smuggled into the active basement of Clarence House. That particular riddle cleared up when the lead protection officer checked the electronic visitor log stored on the basement security server. The digital record showed that a senior estate archivist had transferred 4 heavy crates marked as obsolete stationery from Kensington to Clarence House just 3 days prior to the midnight raid. Auditing physical transfer logs across multiple royal properties exposes unauthorized artifact relocations during internal administrative reorganizations. Security tracking systems record every carton movement between regional estates to maintain strict asset accountability. Another puzzle arose when the protection officer pointed out that the digital transfer manifest had been authorized by Camilla's personal administrative assistant. William placed the charred diary carefully inside a heavy plastic evidence pouch and zipped it shut. He tucked the pouch securely under his arm. He turned back toward the basement exit, knowing that the physical rescue of the journal had successfully prevented the total erasure of history. The first piece of the hidden truth was now safe, setting the stage for the forensic examination of the pages that would expose decades of institutional cover-ups. Uncovering the hidden truths of 1997, Dr. Marcus Vance adjusted the white cotton gloves on his hands. He stood under the bright halogen examination lamps in the secure forensic laboratory at Somerset House. The charred leather volume recovered from the basement incinerator rested on a stainless steel dissection tray before him. He picked up a pair of fine-tipped metal tweezers. He began to peel back the water-damaged and fire-scorched pages of Princess Diana's final journal. The paper was stiff and brittle. The ink had blurred into dark purple smudges along the outer edges, but the central handwriting remained sharp and legible. Forensic document examination protocols require precise humidity-controlled chambers to prevent brittle, fire-damaged paper from crumbling during historical investigations. Specialists utilize specialized optical scanners and the ultraviolet lighting to recover faded or water-stained handwriting without damaging the original fibers of 19th century paper stock. Marcus turned to page 42 of the journal. He shone a fiber optic light across the handwritten lines. The entry was dated August 10th, 1997, just weeks before the fatal Paris car crash. Diana had written detailed notes regarding a secret meeting held at Highgrove House. The notes described a systematic diversion of charitable trust funds into private offshore accounts managed by senior estate administrators. The handwriting was rapid, pressing hard into the paper grain with a black ballpoint pen. Archival documentation concerning charitable trust allocations is strictly governed by the Charities Act. When historical records reveal unauthorized fund transfers from public philanthropic trusts into private accounts, government auditors possess the legal mandate to initiate retrospective forensic investigations without statute of limitation restrictions. An unanswered question hung in the quiet laboratory regarding who had signed off on the initial fund transfers mentioned in the journal entries. That puzzle found its resolution when Marcus applied a chemical enhancement spray to the bottom margin of the page. The liquid revealed a faint, indented signature stamped into the paper fiber beneath a layer of smudged ink. The signature belonged to Sir Walter Rawlings, the former chief financial secretary of the royal household during the late 90s. Rawlings had retired from public service abruptly in 1998, receiving a generous index-linked pension from the sovereign grant. Identifying historical signatories on disputed financial ledgers requires cross-referencing internal payroll archives with vintage bank clearance slips preserved in national government vaults. A fresh puzzle emerged when Marcus noticed a secondary note scribbled in the margin beside Rawlings' signature. The note referenced a secondary ledger stored in a private safety deposit box at Coutts Bank. Catherine walked into the forensic laboratory carrying a secure metal briefcase. She stopped beside the examination table and looked down at the exposed pages of the journal. William stood right behind her, his eyes fixed on his mother's handwriting. Marcus pointed the tip of his tweezers at the margin note. He explained that the Coutts Bank deposit box had remained active under a corporate shell name for nearly 3 decades. The box contained the missing financial audit trails that linked the 1997 trust diversions directly to Camilla's private estate accounts. Corporate shell accounts utilized by royal administrators during the late 20th century operated outside standard parliamentary scrutiny. Modern investigative bodies employ advanced forensic accounting tools to pierce these anonymous corporate veils and trace illicit capital flows back to their original sources. Another puzzle surfaced regarding how the Coutts Bank safety deposit box had avoided detection during the sweeping estate audits conducted over the previous 20 years. That particular riddle cleared up when William checked the lease registration records on his tablet terminal. The shell company holding the deposit box was registered under a dormant subsidiary name managed by a private law firm in Mayfair. The firm had maintained an administrative retainer paid directly from Clarence House operational budgets every quarter. auditing retainer payments made to private law firms exposes hidden financial pipelines connecting central royal estates to external corporate holding entities. Another puzzle arose when the bank registration records indicated that the leaseholder authorization key was scheduled for renewal on the exact day of the midnight raid at Clarence House. Marcus carefully lifted page 43 of the journal. The text described a confrontation between Diana and senior household managers regarding missing documentation for the Children's Hospital Fund. The ink trembled slightly on this page, showing signs of emotional distress. Diana had written that she feared her private apartments were being searched while she traveled abroad. She noted that her personal desk had been unlocked and several key folders removed from her mahogany filing cabinet. Documenting personal security breaches through contemporary journal entries provides vital corroborating evidence during formal historical investigations. When a prominent public figure records unauthorized intrusions into private living quarters, modern forensic teams treat those entries as contemporaneous factual testimony. Another puzzle surfaced regarding who had physical access to Diana's private apartments during her absence in the summer of 1997. That puzzle found its answer when William cross-referenced the palace staff rosters for August 1997. The duty logs recorded that only 3 administrative assistants and the head housekeeper held master key clearance for the private residential wing during the weeks preceding the Paris journey. One of those assistants was a young administrator named Camila Parker Bowles, had personally recommended to the Household Management Committee. Staff movement logs preserved in royal archives serve as crucial evidence when reconstructing historical security breaches and unauthorized access incidents within royal residences. Another puzzle arose when the payroll records showed that the recommended assistant had received an immediate, unexplained promotion and a substantial salary bonus immediately following Diana's passing. Marcus gently closed the leather cover of the recovered journal and secured it inside a transparent preservation case. He looked up at William and Catherine, confirming that the physical evidence extracted from the charred pages provided an unbroken chain of documentation. The hidden truths of 1997 were fully exposed, bridging the decades-old tragedy with the current financial collapse of the inner circle. The path was now cleared to deploy the evidence directly to the highest levels of government. Camilla's desperate cover-up strategy. Camilla paced across the plush wool carpet of her private study at Clarence House. Her heels clicked sharply against the floorboards. She stopped beside the mahogany writing desk. She picked up a secure landline telephone with a shaking hand. She punched in a direct private extension number, connecting to her chief legal advisor across town. The line buzzed twice before a heavy voice answered on the other end. Camilla spoke without a greeting. She ordered her lawyer to draft an emergency injunction to halt the ongoing forensic audit at Somerset House. Emergency legal injunctions filed during active state investigations require immediate documentation of procedural flaws by defense attorneys. When royal estate administrators face imminent exposure, legal teams attempt to block asset seizures by invoking archaic privacy clauses embedded in historical letters patent. The lawyer on the other end of the line cleared his throat softly. He told Camilla that an injunction would fail instantly against a direct sovereign writ. He explained that King Charles had already signed the emergency executive order earlier that morning. That executive signature stripped all remaining legal defenses away from the Clarence House administration. Camilla slammed the heavy telephone handset down onto its cradle. The plastic cracked along the base. She walked over to the tall windows and stared out into the dark courtyard. Challenging direct sovereign executive orders in British courts remains legally impossible under constitutional doctrine. The reigning monarch holds absolute prerogative over internal estate management and asset allocations, rendering standard civil injunctions entirely useless during structural crises. An unexpected flash of headlight swept across the ceiling plaster of the study. A convoy of 3 black vans rolled through the front gates of Clarence House. Uniformed protection officers stepped out from the vehicles and fanned out across the gravel courtyard. Their heavy boots crunched against the stone chips. Camilla watched them surround the main entrance doors from her upstairs window. She reached down into the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out a heavy metal lockbox. She pried the latch open with a steel letter opener. Securing estate perimeters during high-profile administrative takeovers prevents suspects from destroying physical evidence or escaping the jurisdiction before warrants are fully executed. Inside the metal lockbox lay 3 handwritten financial ledgers dating back to 1997. The pages detailed the transfer of charitable trust funds into offshore accounts. Camilla grabbed a handful of loose papers and carried them over to the brick fireplace. A small electric heater glowed near the hearth. She shoved the papers against the metal heating coils, waiting for the edges to brown and catch fire. The acrid smell of burning paper filled the small room. Destroying physical evidence during an active police investigation constitutes a severe criminal offense under the Theft Act, carrying mandatory prison sentences for anyone caught tampering with court-ordered exhibits. Before the flames could consume the entire stack of documents, the study door swung open with a loud crash. 2 royal protection officers stepped into the room. They moved quickly across the carpet. One officer grabbed Camilla by the wrist and pulled her away from the heater. The second officer stamped out the smoldering papers with his boot heel. He scooped up the remaining charred ledgers and dropped them into an evidence bag. The game was completely over. Intervening during active evidence destruction requires immediate physical restraint by trained security personnel to preserve whatever fragments remain of compromised historical records. Another officer walked into the study, carrying a heavy silver clipboard. He handed Camilla a formal notice of immediate eviction and asset forfeiture signed by the Lord Chancellor. She looked down at the official wax seal pressed into the red ribbon at the bottom of the page. She did not say a word. She dropped the letter opener onto the wooden desk and turned her back toward the window, leaving the ruined documents behind as the officers escorted her out of the room. The secret verification at Windsor Castle. King Charles sat behind the oversized mahogany writing desk in his private study at Windsor Castle. A tall, green-shaded brass lamp cast a focused beam of light across a heavy black leather display case resting in the center of the desk. Prince William and Catherine stood silently on the opposite side of the woodwork. William placed the sealed evidence pouch containing Princess Diana's charred journal down beside the leather case. Charles reached out slowly with his right hand. He unzipped the plastic seal and pulled the fire-damaged volume out into the open air. The faint smell of scorched leather and paper drifted across the room. Authentication protocols for historical manuscripts discovered during emergency state investigations require independent verification by certified archival conservators. When a recovered document involves disputed personal testimonies from previous decades, constitutional legal teams must establish an unbroken chain of physical custody before submitting the text into official parliamentary records. Charles picked up a pair of white cotton inspection gloves from a silver tray. He slipped them onto his hands with deliberate care. He opened the charred cover of the journal to page 42. He shone a small ultraviolet penlight across the blurred purple ink entries. The fluorescent light highlighted the distinct pressure marks left by a ballpoint pen. He traced the indented lettering with his gloved index finger, verifying the exact handwriting cadence against official signed letters from 1997 preserved in the Royal Archives. Comparing historical handwriting samples against disputed documents involves analyzing micro slips of the pen, pressure points, and unique loop formations. Forensic document analysts utilize high magnification optical lenses to confirm that entries were written by a specific individual during a precise historical window. An unexpected tap sounded against the heavy oak study door before the brass handle turned slowly downward. Dr. Marcus Vance stepped across the threshold, carrying a large digital scanner and a portable optical microscope. He walked over to the desk and placed his equipment down beside the journal. He told the king that preliminary infrared scans had just finished processing in the mobile laboratory outside. He stated that the initial digital overlays proved the paper stock matched authentic government stationery manufactured during the mid-90s. Verifying vintage paper stock involves testing chemical compositions, rag content, and watermark impressions against manufacturer production ledgers archived by national stationery suppliers. Marcus unclipped a small thermal printout from his briefcase and handed it across the desk to Charles. The printout displayed a microscopic comparison of the ink chemical structure found on page 42 alongside a verified personal letter written by Diana at Kensington Palace in August 1997. The chemical signatures matched with absolute precision. Charles laid the printout flat against the green blotter. He looked up at William and nodded slowly. The authenticity of the final diary was officially verified beyond any possible legal dispute. Establishing definitive chemical matches between disputed texts and verified writing samples eliminates defense arguments alleging forgery or posthumous fabrication during high-stakes legal proceedings. A fresh puzzle materialized when Marcus pointed out a faint watermark embedded near the torn bottom corner of page 43. The watermark featured a small crown emblem surrounded by a circular border of tiny stars. Marcus explained that this specific paper batch had been manufactured exclusively for the private clerical pool at Highgrove House in the summer of 1997. Only 3 books from that exact batch had ever been bound and distributed to members of the immediate royal household. Identifying exclusive estate stationery batches helps historians and investigators track the precise physical distribution of sensitive documents across multiple royal residences. Charles unclipped his fountain pen and signed a formal certificate of authentication on a blank sheet of official sovereign paper. He stamped a red wax seal onto the bottom corner of the document to make the verification legally binding under Crown Seal rules. He looked at Catherine and told her that the hidden truth was finally locked in concrete fact. The cover-up engineered that nearly 3 decades ago had completely collapsed under the weight of physical evidence. The next step required placing these verified pages directly into the hands of parliamentary leaders to ensure permanent public exposure. Deploying the evidence to Parliament, Prince William stood inside the oak-paneled committee room at Westminster Palace. He held a heavy black briefcase in his left hand. The room was dark, save for a row of brass reading lamps casting yellow pools of light across the leather chairs. Across the long mahogany table sat the Lord Chancellor and 3 senior members of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee. William placed the briefcase onto the center of the table. He popped open the brass combination latches with 2 crisp clicks. He reached inside and pulled out certified photocopies of Princess Diana's authenticated journal pages alongside the forensic verification certificates signed by King Charles. Parliamentary oversight committees maintain the constitutional authority to review emergency Crown submissions during active institutional investigations. When authenticated historical documents reveal historical corruption or hidden financial manipulation. By former royal officials, legislative leaders must formally enter those records into the parliamentary register to initiate public accountability proceedings. The Lord Chancellor adjusted his reading glasses and picked up the top sheet of parchment. He read through the forensic watermarking notes and the chemical analysis breakdown signed by Dr. Marcus Vance. He placed the paper back onto the table without saying a word. He looked up at William and asked if the original leather-bound volume remained secure inside the private vault at Windsor Castle. William answered clearly that the original artifact was locked behind 3 steel doors under 24-hour armed guard. Establishing an unbroken chain of custody for historical court exhibits prevents defense challenges during parliamentary debates. Legislative committees require absolute physical security guarantees before accepting sensitive documents into official state archives. An unexpected stir rippled through the doorway behind the committee chairs as 2 junior clerks rushed into the room. One clerk carried a red leather folder marked with urgent priority stamps. He placed the folder directly in front of the committee chairman. The chairman opened the cover and scanned the typed contents rapidly. He whispered something into the ear of the Lord Chancellor. The Lord Chancellor's expression tightened into a hard, unyielding line. Interceptions of emergency government briefs by outside administrative agents trigger immediate security lockdowns within parliamentary committee spaces to protect sensitive state evidence from unauthorized leaks. The chairman cleared his throat and addressed the room in a sharp tone. He stated that a late-night legal challenge had just been filed at the High Court by attorneys representing former Clarence House administrators. The legal petition attempted to slap an emergency gag order on the committee, claiming the journal entries violated historical privacy statutes protecting deceased members of the royal family. William stepped forward, placing both hands flat on the polished mahogany surface of the table. He told the committee that privacy statutes do not apply when documents expose active criminal obstruction and charity fraud. Challenging gag orders during major legislative investigations requires citing public interest exemptions under the Freedom of Information Act and associated Crown privilege statutes. The Lord Chancellor nodded slowly in agreement with William's assessment. He picked up a heavy wooden gavel from the side tray and struck the green felt surface once. He announced that the committee officially rejected the High Court injunction petition under emergency sovereign exemption rules. He instructed the committee secretary to register the diary excerpts into the permanent parliamentary record immediately. The legal barrier was smashed to pieces. The hard evidence was now officially part of the public legislative record. Registering disputed historical documents into official parliamentary records grants absolute legal immunity to lawmakers and investigators, allowing the full truth to be examined without fear of private defamation, lawsuits. Another clerk stepped forward and handed the chairman a freshly printed distribution schedule. The schedule detailed the automated release of the verified journal copies to every major national newsroom across the United Kingdom exactly at dawn. William closed his empty black briefcase and snapped the brass latches shut. He turned around and walked out of the committee room, knowing that the final wall of secrecy had been permanently torn down, paving the way for the nation to learn the unvarnished truth. Heavy oak doors swung shut behind the prince as he entered the long, vaulted corridor of the parliamentary building. The stone walls echoed with the quiet footsteps of night watchmen checking security seals. Outside the tall lancet windows, the London fog rolled lazily over the River Thames, obscuring the distant orange glow of street lamps. William walked at a steady, deliberate pace, his coat brushing against his knees. Every stone block in the corridor carried centuries of political history. Yet, few knights had ever witnessed a constitutional intervention of this magnitude. Legislative corridors within the Palace of Westminster operate under strict security classifications during high-level parliamentary sessions. Special branch officers patrol these zones around the clock to protect state officials from external interference or targeted political pressure campaigns. An unexpected sound broke the quiet rhythm of his boots. A sharp, rhythmic ticking noise echoed from the far corner of the intersecting passageway near the pier's entrance. William stopped abruptly and turned his head toward the shadowy alcove. A security monitor stood mounted against the stone wall, flashing a series of amber warning codes across its flat screen panel. The system display indicated a sudden electronic routing block, originating from the parliamentary press office downstairs. Digital security firewalls installed across government networks automatically isolate unauthorized external data requests. When outside legal teams attempt to intercept outgoing legislative press packs, network security protocols isolate the affected routing nodes to preserve document integrity. The blinking amber lights shifted to a solid green flash within 30 seconds, signifying that the automated transmission queue had cleared all security hurdles. William let out a quiet breath and resumed his walk toward the main exit doors. He pushed open the heavy brass-trimmed portal and stepped out onto the damp stone portico of the building. A waiting government vehicle idled at the curb, with its headlights cutting through the morning mist. Coordinating secure transport for senior royals leaving parliamentary grounds requires armored motorcades and synchronized communications with metropolitan police command centers. This security measure prevents ambush attempts by hostile media or rogue administrative factions. The vehicle door clicked open as the lead protection officer spotted the prince emerging from the shadow of the stone columns. William climbed into the back seat of the car and pulled the heavy door shut behind him. The car pulled away smoothly from the curb, merging into the empty lane leading toward Buckingham Palace. He looked down at his empty hands, realizing that the physical battle inside Westminster was finished, and the historic disclosure was now accelerating toward the morning news desks across the nation. The nation learns the full story. Television screens flickered across thousands of living rooms throughout the United Kingdom as the 6 o'clock evening news broadcast began. The traditional station identification graphic flashed briefly before cutting straight to the main studio anchor desk. A copy of the official parliamentary record rested squarely on the glass desktop before the newsreader. The camera zoomed in tight on the anchor's face. The broadcast opened with the stark announcement that verified excerpts from Princess Diana's final 1997 journal had been entered into the permanent state register at Westminster earlier that afternoon. National broadcasting standards mandate immediate public notification whenever classified parliamentary records concerning senior royal governance are officially unsealed. News organizations receive verified document packages through encrypted state channels to ensure accurate reporting without editorial distortion. Millions of viewers watched as the screen split to display high-resolution photographs of the charred journal pages alongside Dr. Marcus Vance's forensic chemical analysis certificates. The anchor read aloud the exact transcription of the August 10th journal entry, detailing the charitable trust diversions at Highgrove House. The familiar handwriting appeared in sharp clarity against the broadcast monitor. Viewers across the country could see the precise pen strokes and the signature of Sir Walter Rawlings stamped into the margins. Exhibiting forensic evidence during televised news broadcasts provides concrete visual proof that grounds complex investigative reporting in indisputable physical reality. Public comprehension increases significantly when original historical documents are displayed side by side with official expert verification reports. An unexpected disruption occurred inside the master control room when a secondary emergency newswire began printing a breaking advisory bulletin. The studio director rushed onto the set and handed a printed slip of paper directly to the anchor. The anchor paused mid-sentence, glanced down at the fresh paper strip, and looked back into the camera lens with a steady expression. The advisory confirmed that former Clarence House administrators had abandoned their legal defense efforts following the release of the Parliamentary record. Interrupting live broadcasts with breaking confirmation bulletins prevents misinformation from spreading during fast-moving institutional crises, ensuring that the public receives verified legal updates in real time. The anchor continued reading from the new bulletin. The report stated that all offshore shell company accounts linked to the 1997 financial transfers had been officially frozen by order of the High Court Financial Division. Assets totaling £24 million were slated for immediate return to the original Children's Hospital and humanitarian charitable trusts. The long-hidden financial trail was finally severed, and the stolen philanthropic funds were recovered for their intended purpose. Freezing illicit offshore accounts during active state investigations relies on international banking cooperation frameworks that enable courts to intercept and repatriate diverted charitable capital back to national jurisdiction pools. A fresh update flashed across the lower third news banner. Prince William and Catherine released a brief, joint written statement from Kensington Palace thanking the Parliamentary Oversight Committee and the forensic audit teams for their unwavering commitment to historical truth. The statement emphasized that the complete disclosure of these records closes a painful chapter of institutional secrecy and restores absolute public accountability to the core of the British Crown. Releasing official royal statements following major constitutional disclosures establishes a clear institutional voice that reaffirms dedication to transparency and public trust. The news broadcast concluded with a wide-angle shot of the illuminated clock tower at Westminster Palace, standing tall against the night sky. The final anchor commentary noted that this unprecedented exposure of historical documents permanently changes how the British monarchy handles internal accountability and public trust. Millions of citizens turned off their televisions as the broadcast feed faded to black. The long-concealed truths of the past had finally broken free into the open air, setting a permanent foundation for a transformed royal future under new leadership. The dramatic rescue of Princess Diana's final diary from the flames of Clarence House and the complete dismantling of Camilla's decades-old cover-up mark an unforgettable turning point in royal history. By bringing these long-hidden truths to light, Prince William and Catherine have honored a mother's memory while permanently shattering the walls of institutional secrecy. From the midnight basement raid to the historic parliamentary disclosures, the Crown has chosen unyielding accountability over comfortable silence. The stolen charitable funds have been fully recovered, and the true architects of past deceptions have been stripped of their power and privilege. As the nation absorbs the full weight of these monumental revelations, the monarchy stands forever transformed by a courageous return to honesty and duty. These historic disclosures finally heal the deepest wounds of the past, paving a clear, trusted path forward for the future of the institution. Beyond the immediate legal victories and asset recoveries, this historic moment signals a profound cultural reckoning within the highest echelons of the British establishment. For decades, whispers of misplaced philanthropy and administrative manipulation remained buried beneath layers of palace protocol and calculated silence. The physical survival of Diana's personal journal broke through that artificial barrier with undeniable force. Every page recovered from the ash provided the exact corroboration needed to dismantle elaborate defensive walls built by those who sought to rewrite history for personal preservation. Prince William and Catherine demonstrated extraordinary resolve by stepping directly into the center of the constitutional storm. Their actions proved that the future leadership of the monarchy rests upon an unwavering commitment to truth, rather than the blind preservation of flawed traditions. By ensuring that these documents reach the parliamentary records and the public domain, they established a modern standard where no individual, regardless of title or status, stands above the law or beyond public scrutiny. As the dust settles over Westminster and the restored funds flow back to the hospitals and charities that desperately needed them, the entire constitutional landscape feels the impact. Citizens across the United Kingdom and the broader Commonwealth are engaging in vital conversations about integrity, governance, and the true meaning of public service. The shadows of past deception have been swept away by the bright light of absolute transparency. Will these bold constitutional reforms and unyielding pursuits of justice inspire permanent confidence across the Commonwealth for generations to come?